a criminal government. It's run by cocaine and heroin dealers, literally. They launder the money to the banks. They made the decision arrogantly to issue unlimited liquidity to themselves and everybody else and to buy up all the infrastructure. They've leveraged the world thousands of times. That is, there's thousands of times of fiat money compared to real assets. And they wrote IMF, World Bank documents, White House memos about how they had to set up a police state, and this happened decades ago, so that when the people found out, we couldn't punish them for their criminal actions because we are going to be left holding the financial bag. The OECD and others, the big global management groups, are saying that we are going to have to pay 87% taxes just to pay off the debt on this so they can then own all the real assets. But as Bob Chapman was saying, top expert on the stock market, the commodities, you name it, internationalforecaster.com. I went through his bio. It would take hours, but you can go read it if you want. And we're honored to have guests of his caliber and people like the father of Reaganomics, former head of the Treasury, Paul Craig Roberts, and others. They're all saying the same thing. We are cooked unless we raise interest rates and do some other things. What could lessen the crash landing, Bob Chapman? Then I want to go back into what we're seeing happen right now.
Well, I think probably a slow upward movement in interest rates, and that wouldn't have to come from the Federal Reserve. It could come by the market itself. And it really is underway. It's already started.
Well, that's what Europe's doing, right?
Right. And I think that you're going to see more of this in the real marketplace. And sooner or later, the Fed will have to raise rates. But it's not going to be anytime soon. They sent out that false signal, a couple of months ago in order to keep the stock market up. But I kind of think that except for expeditionary moves into the market, I think they've come to terms with the fact that the stock market's going down and they can't do an awful lot to stop it. And I think they're at the same crossroads with gold and silver. And so this is all part of a crumbling process. This whole thing is coming unglued. They just like Fortis, the banking group in Europe, said, the 6,000 banks, how many are going under? And I had projected 300 in the next couple of years, but maybe it's super conservative. I mean, we won't know until we get there, but it's not going to be good. And, of course, we just had IndyMac go down. It should have gone down 8 months ago. They were keeping alive on whole blood or something, and so that's gone now. And hopefully people didn't have more than $100,000 in their accounts because otherwise they'd be stuck. But we are just continuing to evolve in a system that is continuing to be floated by the amount of money and credit that the Fed can feed into the system to offset the deflation of the falling value of real assets. Okay, let's walk through that because remember, Bob, to us this is just like breathing, but to the general public, they're never allowed to hear this. We have people listening all over the place in Kansas City and San Diego and Austin, Texas, and Niagara Falls and Tampa, Florida, and all over the place. And they're saying, what is devaluing assets? I mean, they literally, all they've been told is lies and disinformation, as you know, and false, economic models by design to where they can't recognize what we're saying. For those that don't know, the only thing that would save the dollar would be raising interest rates, and the dollar has dropped again. Oil has risen with that. Can you speak to what that means and what more failing banks and more Federal Reserve bailouts mean? That is, private banks get bailed out with our tax money. And the brokerage business and the investment business and the insurance business and eventually the corporate business, because that's what happens in a corporatist fascist state, and that's what we've got. But the Fed's in a box. If they raise interest rates, the economy collapses. So they really can't do anything. Now, that's why I said it'll be a couple of years before they're going to raise interest rates. Everybody else will, and the real market for interest rates will rise, but their official position won't. Why are they buying time? I mean, why? Because they don't want to be caught at what they're doing. They want to pass it on to Barack Obama. Pardon me? They want to pass it on to other administrations. Well, yeah, that's true in part. George W. Bush gets out with his proverbial skin. With his rating now, I don't know that it's going to make much difference. I think it's lower now than Richard Nixon's was after he resigned. But the problem is one that they're trying to extend, and in that extension, they're making the problem worse. But they don't know what to do because they're caught. Now, you referred to how this is happening. The diminution of assets. We have homes, commercial real estate, businesses falling in value. We have mortgages and other such lent instruments, such as credit cards and so on and so forth. The failure rate continues to rise. Those are all loss of assets.
And we're having diminishing assets while the dollar is devalued and inflation, what, is running about 14% a year?
My figures are 12.875 right now, just under 13. I expect 15 by the end of the year. And I think that the M3, which is the issuance of money and credit in one way or another by the Fed, I think that it's around 17% right now. It fluctuates every couple of weeks. And I see that over 20% next year, maybe as high as 25 or 30, to keep the engine going.
Now, let's be clear. They're going to devalue the dollar outside the country by 25 to 30%, while 15%, but that's compounded annually. So we've already lost half the dollar's value at conservative 10% loss per year in the last 5.
Well, I think ultimately we'll lose 50% of the value from here. And that's because the issuance of money and credit will grow that great before the system collapses.
Okay, putting this in layman's terms, if they raise interest rates, put in tariffs, as Dr. Roberts has called for, I want to see if you agree with that.
I sure do.
Okay.
I didn't know anybody else had the guts to get out front on that. I've been the only one for the last 5 or 6 years, and I'm happy to hear he is, because tariffs made America great. We went through a very difficult time after the Declaration of Independence in trade because we had a free and open mercantilist economy. And what happened was that it was a disaster because the Chinese were making things cheaper than that they could ship to us than they are now. And so we went to tariffs, and the tariffs were fair, and everybody else used tariffs. And it was a level playing field in as much as you produced the broom in China for 50 cents, and it was produced in the United States for $1. So the tariff on brooms from China was 50 cents. It's pretty simple.
And then you can decide what you want.
And then they would. That's right. They would compete on the value, the value of the product itself.
And then that ups quality.
Quality.
Instead of the globalist
China
system.
didn't have quality in those days, believe me, and neither did Japan.
Yeah. And so that, though, incentivizes quality. Now, again, Bob Chapman, for laymen out there that don't understand, they are going to continue to devalue the dollar and keep interest rates where they are for a while longer. That will ensure destruction of the dollar and the economy instead of saving the dollar and letting the economy fall apart to where we at least still had some value in our fiat currency, correct?
Which they should be doing. And the only answer, as an antidote for that, is an insurance policy and food, filters, things to defend your family with, and gold and silver. That's the only place to go to.
Now, when we come back, we're going to take some calls for you, Bob Chapman, but I want to ask you the question. This is gyrating out of control. Even they're out of, losing control of it. In a lot of their writings, they say they wanted to kill the dollar to bring in the world currency, but is this happening too soon? We'll talk to Bob Chapman on the other side. The New World Order engineered this to rape you, okay? But in the process, they've even endangered their own ghoulish butts, as Bob Chapman was just saying. Bob Chapman's our guest. Your calls straight ahead.